Berserk is a series which excels at setup and execution of its world building, within both the major and minor characters it introduces. NieR will often introduce characters and even different incarnations of a character, set up their motivations, how their character is feeling at the time, and how this affects the world around them, to then only put them to the side and reintroduce them when the story needs them to tell a certain perspective of an event, which only their character could convey. A good example of this is Pre-Hawk Guts. This is an incarnation of a character we only briefly saw during the Golden Age, during his fight with Bezuza. A version of Guts which is an inherent loner, only fighting to live another day, possessing traits from the result of his horrific upbringing, such as hating being touched, which eventually came to pass during his time with the Hawks, although it did pop up again during the Black Swordsman arc, for obvious reasons. Yet NieR revisited this portrayal of the character decades later in the Spring Flower of Distant Days chapter during Fantasia, bringing an interesting dynamic of how this version of Guts would react to the events unfolding around him, with Chich the Flower Spirit being captured, compared to what we briefly saw with Bezuza. This strengthens what we knew about Guts as a character, and helps build the world of Berserk, with Guts encountering such fantastical creatures such as elves before the Golden Age, different perspectives of mercenary groups before the Band of the Hawk, among other things. Silat is such a character who was introduced in Golden Age, whom NieR kept coming back to following this philosophy of setup and execution. Instead of front-loading all their motivations offhand, this character would disappear for large chunks of time, and he would come back with different perspectives on events based on experience, which helps Silat feel grounded within the world itself. Silat, like Guts, is just another person in this world, rather than the world revolving around the character. Hunter x Hunter is another series which also excels at this type of storytelling. We first encounter Silat in the Arms Tournament. The striking design proves a good contrast to the rest of the Berserk world, and provides some early world building and setup of the Kushan and the Bakiraka, which NieR would bring into full force in later arcs. Just a quick side note, Silat and by extension, the Kushan, are based off real historical figures. I provided a link in the description from a SkullKnight.net thread from 2005 which explains the basis of Silat and Kushan, from their region to their combat prowess. It's a lengthy read, but it's very worth it. Up to this point, we've only seen the Berserk world as a predominantly European-influenced world in both the locales and character designs of the various inhabitants of Midland, Tudor, etc. Silat's character design visually sets up a larger Berserk world to the reader, with the details filling in naturally over time within the flow of the story, compared to front-loading all of this at once with exposition. Even the setup of the enigmatic warrior from a strange land, Silat, paired with this striking design, it wants us, the reader, to see more of the world which he hails from. This is also reflected in Silat's fighting style. His weapons and his fighting technique are otherworldly compared to what we've encountered so far within the story. Compared to the swordplay techniques we've seen before, Silat is a very agile and versatile fighter. Upon his introduction to the Arms Tournament, we can see the craftiness of how he fights, using a mixture of daggers, knives embedded into his boots, among other techniques. Silat is the first human opponent we've seen fight in such a style, and provides an interesting tonal contrast compared to the classical medieval fighting styles we've experienced in the Golden Age up to this point. Silat's introduction of his fighting arts of the Irumi and Chakrams also feels organic within the world that NieR is setting up. One of my favourite scenes with Silat is when he introduces his Chakrams, and Jado knows about such weapons. It shows some awareness of where Silat hails from, and the vastness of this world beyond what we've seen from Midland. But NieR ensures to retain some of the mystery to this through the fact that Jado doesn't seem to be aware of the Irumi. Just because he knows about some things, he does know about everything, and again, it just helps him feel more organic and natural within the world building NieR is setting up. After this fight with Guts in the forest, the next time we see Silat won't be until Conviction, which chronologically is 2 years plus. This helps reinforce the point that Silat just feels like another player within the world of Berserk. If the story doesn't require him, then he doesn't need to be there. Miura could have easily made him exposition dump about the Bakiraka, Kushan, even Ganishka, all the way back in his introduction, but instead Miura uses him sparingly, only in moments which are required to the natural world building and story of Berserk. The world building of the Bakiraka and Kushan is also supported with the Bakiraka chapters in the Golden Age. The only information attained from their introduction is they're a fighting group to the east who are highly skilled in assassination. The full story is shrouded in mystery. We can gather two key points from this dialogue exchange alone. Firstly, the Bakiraka are skilled assassins from the eastern portion of the world of Berserk. The second point is they are assassins for hire, being employed by the King of Midland in this scenario, who even threatens to wipe them out if harm comes to Charlotte. This is a natural way of building the world of Berserk and the Bakiraka's place within it. It sets up and sows the seeds of Silats and the Bakiraka's relationship with the Kushan and Ganishka, and how their exile ties into the fact that they are assassins for hire. Again, instead of front-loading all this information at once, when the Kushan were a big driving force in the later arcs, Miura instead sets up these two key points naturally here, so it doesn't feel jarring and like exposition when these points are expanded upon way later in the series. Even Silat's initial cocky attitude can be reflected in what we see here in the Bakiraka portions of the Golden Age. Judo comments that each and every one is a superhuman monster, but these guys even surpass the rumour. Because Silat leads such a clan, no wonder he possesses a superiority complex. Seeing these skills firsthand, and how dangerous the Bakiraka are within these episodes, provides a good justification why Silat acts the way he does. But as we know, Silat will change in many ways when we see him again in the Conviction arc. So join me in the next and final part, where I will be covering the other arcs in Berserk, where I will further analyse the motions that Silat's character has gone through, and how this affects both his development and the world building in Berserk. Thanks for watching.